Hey everyone. We're going to get into a live stream today and break down some of the market moves and of course take a look at where Bitcoin is. Also take a look at some of the macro pressures. We got a couple of key dates that are going to maybe indicate growth toward the end of the week. Don't miss it. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. Of course, before we get started, I want to thank our sponsor, and that is Tangem. If you're looking at self-custody, this is one of the solutions I really like. One, because it is super secure, very easy to use. So if you're brand new to crypto and maybe you're just brand new at our show, go over to tangem.com and get your wallet. This is a physical card, so it works in conjunction with a fantastic application that, of course, you can download on iOS or Android. And guess what? You can get a 3-card set fairly inexpensively. Use our discount code. It's going to help you guys get going on self-custody. Let's go over a couple things today. I want to hit on fear and greed. If you look at a couple of the charts right here, I'll zoom in on this one here from CoinMarketCap. And if you look at where it has come from, and remember, this is back when we saw Bitcoin take a fairly significant and sharp move downward under the sub 50 or sub 40, sub 60 numbers. And of course, we've started to see a little bit of move coming back into a neutral position right now. So we'll see if this plays out, even though if you look at other fear and greed indexes, people are still a little bit more fearful overall. A couple of key dates right here. This week, of course, July PPI inflation data comes out on Tuesday, and then we get the CPI data on Wednesday. Both those will be important. I think the other one to really watch is going to be the Thursday data on retail sales, because this is what could be a indicator, or at least a pre-indicator to where jobs might come in. And remember, the job numbers are going to come on right before the Fed meets next month in September, which is where we could see our first rate cut. So just a lot of data points that could continue to drive what Chair Powell's move is going to be. Other things that are driving the market right now, of course, is Chapter 11 bankruptcies soaring. Let me zoom in on that for you guys a little bit. Total filings plus 34% year over year in the first half of 2024. And if you look at small business filings, that's up 61% year over year. This is a significant leap forward. And if you look at the chart, that's the kind of growth we've seen in terms of what high interest rates have done in decimating what we had as an economy. Question is are we in for a bumpy landing? Are we in for a hard landing? What's this going to look like? And does this push us, if we continue, into a much more difficult position economically, maybe a recession? A lot of people looking at that, because that could have a lot of bearing on Bitcoin. Couple of headlines right here. Bitcoin's price dropping below 59K as institutions stop buying a little. However, there was other people that were in the mood for buying the dip. So you look at institutions stopping, saying, okay, we've had enough in terms of a partial buy-in on the last run. We're going to kind of set this one out. But of course, we did see a little bit of, kind of adjustment, I think, back in the market after seeing a little bit of a striking down. I think right now, if you look at Bitcoin in general, there's two things. One, of course, is how it's going to maybe affect the altcoins and even Ethereum to a certain extent. I'll talk about Ethereum in a second. But if you look at, just the past history of months that we've seen around positivity, August has always been somewhat of a negative month, a red month. The question will be is how does September play out with the potential of the macro maybe loosening up some, especially with the Fed. And remember, we still have, some positions here from a political side that could change things dramatically in the next, 60, 90 days. So don't necessarily count that out. One thing to look at here is the difference between these fear and greed indexes. This is kind of interesting because this comes over from the alternative fear and greed, which right now is setting at extreme fear versus what we saw on the crypto chart there with CoinMarketCap that showed it in much more of a neutral position. Let me know what you guys think. Is this more of a buy the dip position, or is it a scenario where you want to stay on the sidelines and keep a little dry powder for a move? Let me know. Drop some comments down below. We will be taking a few questions, so try to drop some over on the side. And of course, if you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure and do that right now. It's a great place to hopefully get this into your daily. We try to go to live daily, Monday through Friday. Sometimes we'll skip a day, just kind of depends on what's happening in the news. But this is, of course, a great place to start, maybe if you're brand new to crypto. Other things I want to get on here is this the time to buy the dip or not? There's a couple of people that are looking at it a little bit differently. Let's go to a clip.
You had credit spreads finally widen. You had the dollar yen did what it do. You had Japanese stocks selling off the most since 1987. And then a rally in the back half of the week. Right. So where do we stand in terms of stretched and frothy technicals?
Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if the volatility continues for a while, even through the fall, right? September and October tend to be volatile months. And then after that, I think as you get into the October earnings season and you see, oh, everything's still okay, I think that's when we'll see all this settle down.
Well, I know you say don't time the market, but in some way, should I see every time stocks drop like they did, do I need to lick my lips and say time to buy up?
Yeah, I do think when you get a decline of 10% or more, which happens, is not uncommon. I'd say once every other year you get that kind of event. That's typically been a buying opportunity. So yeah, I do lick my lips when I see that, and I do get excited.
All right, so that's, of course, the BlackRock CIO coming in on that. And I think these are traditional mechanisms within a market where we do see these moves. One thing that I've heard from a lot of people over the weekend as we started to see Bitcoin adjust is this going to be the last run down? And because there's been many things, even Evan and I talked about this last Friday is this the last dip? Is this the last move downward? There's a lot of people who still believe we could see a low 50s number, possibly back into the high 40s to mid 40s for a Bitcoin. So I don't know. Let me know your thoughts, because that I think would really adjust a lot into what we would see in the altcoins. Now remember, who bought the dip last week? This was, again, a tweet from last week. And it wasn't retail, because at that time it was what we were seeing from an institutional capital side, 14 billion in net buying. So this time around, it's retail that's kind of carrying the torch. So maybe not to the extent, but definitely in a position. So kind of interesting how the market kind of rotates into different interest levels. And it's always one of those things. I still think those are FOMO scenarios, because you missed it last time. Oh, well, now I get, a $58,000 Bitcoin opportunity again, maybe a 56 if I see one coming in. Is that an opportunity to come in and grab Bitcoin or Ethereum or an altcoin if it's starting to dip down below? And have you seen the erratic nature that we've seen on everything from Solana to Avalanche, Chainlink, you name them? A lot of moves between some of the top tokens out there in terms of top 50. A couple other things to kind of just be aware of is we are now nearing a much different campaign than we had just 30 days ago. That's right, 30 days ago, this chart was nowhere near this. Obviously, that was before the Harris camp came out and is running for president. But of course, this has started to change things dramatically. And I think this is the scenario that we are going to be faced with, especially in the crypto community, of not necessarily knowing where the Democratic position stands on crypto in general. We know where the White House stands on crypto, and that's pretty much been against it. So I think this is a big, big month for not only the Harris campaign, but also for crypto voters, because you are going to get to a point where you're going to have to start making a decision. And I think this is a critical time going into the election. I want to go to another one. This, of course, was Tony DeSpirito from BlackRock talking a little bit more how you position during an election. Take a look.
Okay, so we have the Fed rate cut, but then after that it's going to be a U.S. election. Do you position differently for politics?
I don't think you can. I think you have to look, and yes, there are certain sectors that may be at risk if one person wins or the other person wins the presidency. But for the most part, I think what you want to do is avoid that kind of risk and just go straight up the middle.
Yeah, and this is the thing that was the whole point. When I talk to a lot of colleagues on the weekends, everybody's kind of texting back and forth in some of our groups. And one of the things that everybody has been kind of leaning in on, and these are, I would say high net worth individuals in the sense that they're trying to put capital to work. They're looking at crypto right now as you can't hedge it right now because of the unknown factor that still exists in the political side of it. So I would agree with DeSpirito here with BlackRock is that maybe the risk assets are the ones that are at most risk during this run up. Now, if we get a position that comes in from the Harris campaign, maybe that changes a little bit. We'll see, because I have not been confident that we're going to see something, I think, that's going to be pro-crypto, at least not yet. Maybe we will. I know Mark Cuban sees things a little differently, but I haven't seen anything out of the Democratic position to really kind of make us look at this as a positive move either way in other words, it doesn't matter who wins kind of scenario, that would be the perfect holy grail for crypto users in general, but definitely one to watch. This is another thing that is concerning me here is this is Morgan Stanley talking, or I should say, remember we did a headline on this where they were kind of opening Bitcoin and up to a lot of their, their customers. And to go out with 15,000 advisors, that was a big statement, number one. Number two, it has a huge trickle-down effect into the markets. And this is everything from family office, high net worth individuals. A lot of people now getting calls that probably this week that are saying, hey, this might be the time to get Bitcoin. So now is your shot at an ETF. And even now, with all of what we've seen coming out of the SEC, this is the former SEC attorney saying, you guys must be crazy doing this. Couple of points that I'll hit on here. Firm is targeting specific clientele, again, with net worth of 1.5 million, high tolerance of risk. And then this right here was John Reese Stark talking about this, issued a stern warning on social media that, he basically predicted that Morgan Stanley's decision to allow its brokers to promote would lead to unprecedented level of scrutiny. So I think this is a big factor because this could be one of those things where an I told you so moment could come, especially if we see Bitcoin see a big reversal around what is right now, I think, a very soft August, especially just from a political standpoint, and because of all the macro pressures that we're seeing, including the scenario playing out with both jobs, inflation, the global stage in terms of what we're seeing on conflicts. Just not a good time for any of this. And of course, he identifies regulatory violations. In the context would be like shooting fish in a barrel. That's going to be another scenario that could play into this, all in a new, I think, scenario for where crypto is going. One other thing I want to get to is this right here, guys. While all of that is happening, you've got the typical antics from banks. And this is something that I don't like. It's, I don't like banks when they kind of get their hands caught in the cookie jar. This is Wells Fargo, Morgan Stanley, Bank of America, all accused of cheating customers out of billions of dollars in interest payments. And this is, again, another problem of why we need more decentralized finance, or at least the ability to do what we're doing right now, and that is self-custody, being able to work within exchanges, possibly in the future using those as a bank. Remember that Robinhood just issued their new credit card, so do we see more activity coming from those and away from our traditional banks? This, of course, is getting into the fact that the SEC is probing banks to determine whether or not they purposely directed cash sweep accounts and paid little or no interest. And then, of course, just so you guys know, cash sweep accounts designed to shift idle cash into investment vehicles that earn interest, meaning the bank is using your money to go out and earn interest, but not giving you any part of that interest that they earn. Typical scenario that happens, the only place it doesn't happen is when you're getting paid maybe 4 to 6% in USDC deposits, or like what you might see on Coinbase or what you might see on Robinhood. So those are the big difference. But right now, the banks are not commenting. That's a big statement for sure. Drop some questions in over on the side. Let me know if you like these live streams. So hit the like button right now. It is the way that we get feedback from you. I look at those likes and I go, did we get enough likes on the live stream? Is it really worth the time to go out on a live stream and do these? If you think so, and you want up-to-date information as quick as it comes available, and maybe you can kind of front run the opportunity, let me know. Just hit the like. Let's go to a couple of clips here. There's a couple of back-to-backs here I want to hit on, because this still goes into the position around the Democratic position towards crypto. Here's Vivek Ramaswamy talking about how maybe the Harris campaign will address it. Take a look.
Fair enough, but I think a lot of us, or a lot of voters, sense that was then, this is now, and there's a pragmatism, which brings me to the point on crypto that I think is kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. Pragmatically speaking, you'd think, why not be for it, right? This is so, and you look at what Gary Gensler is doing, going after the industry kind of time and again, and there are those who argue, who think if you're a single voter on crypto, that this could lose her the election if she doesn't come out and embrace it. Look, Trump was all for the not taxing tips, now she's all for. Do you think she will ultimately embrace crypto as an industry?
I predict her verbiage will. And I do think that part of the reason why is you see Trump's speech at the Bitcoin conference. It's just a matter of competing for votes that she's going to adopt a thoughtful position. Now, speaking as an American, not from a partisan perspective, I think that's a good thing. I think we should want great debate in the marketplace of ideas. Even if she offers a thoughtful digital assets framework or policy, even if I don't agree with all of it, I think that'll be a good thing for the country. But what I challenge Kamala Harris to do is not just cite the pieties and the words. Go into detail. Say what you actually believe about self-custody of assets. Say what you actually believe about whether you think Gary Gensler should continue as the leader of the SEC. So I think those specifics are going to matter a lot, Kelly.
For sure, but is what you're saying is just a general position of openness is probably all the industry really is looking for. This idea that it's not a partisan issue, that Republicans are for it and Democrats are against it.
It should not be a partisan issue. Now, what I think you are seeing is this tendency to really embrace whatever wins her the most votes. But when you're looking at your question, Andrew, of how do you assess the seriousness of that, the metric to use is how specific she actually gets on those policy proposals.
All right, so there's a couple of things to unpack there, because remember, we were talking about the scenario where you have basically an unknown, and that being the Democratic Party. You don't really know what their position is. That's a risk that you can't take necessarily to maybe deploy a lot of cash into crypto, because you just don't know what their position is. What Vivek is, of course, talking about is if she comes in light with maybe just touch points of what we want to hear, maybe that would be enough to put money back to work. But I kind of go the other route. I don't think it would be enough to put money back to work, because the crypto, not only voter, but the crypto investor, I think is one of the smartest investors that we've got out there on the market. These are not people that are putting and deploying cash, through an advisor. In many cases, they're doing it on their own. That is a different kind of voter, meaning they know more and they're much more educated. And when they're much more educated, they're going to draw much more in terms of a conclusion as to how the position is presented. So that's the argument. I would agree with Vivek on that. But it does put a much more, I think, heavy weight on the camp of Harris to get a position that is one that might actually do something. And it would be, he is right, it would be, all boats would rise if both partisan positions were pro-crypto. Just we haven't seen that yet. Now the question here, again, goes back to retail. And here's Vlad Tenev. He is the CEO of Robinhood. And he says some things about how retail talks and how they act. And this is the exact point I'm getting at. Let's go to this clip.
I think so far in July and August, we've been seeing just very large volumes, 20% higher than what we've seen in June across the board. And August so far has been tremendous. Customers are buying the dip. The first week of August, we saw over $1 billion in net deposits, with about $500 million just in this Monday alone. So retail seems to be buying the dip here across pretty much all asset classes.
So he just kind of hit on my whole point there, is that this investor, much smarter, they're savvier in the sense of understanding how markets move, but they're also in a position where they understand maybe a long-term play here, and they're saying, okay, this is an opportunity because there's a dip in the market, I'll take that risk. But we're not seeing major inflows outside of the Ethereum record that we saw. But when you go away from that and you start to look at some of the big market caps, you look at some of the big assets, we haven't seen that big push forward. And I think that's the point I'm getting at, is unless we see scenarios break loose from a political standpoint, we may not necessarily see those kind of market moves. And time is getting critical too. So there's a lot of things that could play into this. I want to go to another clip. This is talking about how this may play out, because many people are looking at, well, with this dip, are there some potential projects out there or categories that could benefit? AI has been one that everybody's talked about for quite a bit. I want to play this and then I'll explain a little bit more deep. Take a look.
It really is programmatic almost. The two places retail tends to start, Apple and Microsoft. The other companies, they went to, Goldman Sachs and Coca-Cola. Again, similar profiles. There was a change in behavior where people viewed this as a buy the dip mentality, much more than a, run around screaming with the hair on fire mentality.
What do you do now then?
Some of the names that got momentum, if you will, just because they were involved in AI, et cetera. I think one of the things you saw from this earnings season is how are you actually going to monetize AI? And I think sort of that free pass, if you will, is gone for many stocks going forward.
All right, so let me kind of translate that a little bit, because what he's talking about here is when you see these majors regress, whether that's NVIDIA, Microsoft, Apple, any of those, that capital has to still go to work. Just like with Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Avalanche, whatever your major investment might be in the crypto side, that asset's capital is going to still have to go to work if you make a sale. Okay, so the point they're getting at is if we're seeing exits into the market, the likelihood is not necessarily going to be going into in the traditional markets, mid caps. Instead, they were going back into quality. So will we see that kind of investor react the same way in the crypto markets? Will they look at, all right, I'm going to pull money off of NVIDIA, and now I might go over and buy a render or a near protocol, or I'm going to buy something of equal quality that is NVIDIA, though it's not an AI play, and buy Ethereum or buy a Bitcoin, whatever it might be. That's the question I think that a lot of people are looking at. How does that asset, I don't think we're going to see a lot of the lower cap alts make a move with this kind of money on the sidelines. And remember, liquidity is going to be a key factor going into these next stages. Other things that are going to be playing into this, of course, we saw one of the things, Ethereum investors, 48.5 move piles on the heat on ETH, continue. This, of course, is on the ETH move the Bitcoin move last week. And ETH has been under pressure for quite a while. It's one of those things that I think a lot of people have been asking. The question for Ethereum is, why are we not seeing Ethereum really move overall? If you look at some of the contributing factors into this, I think there are many. One, I think the ETH ETF is still a contributing factor in a positive way, but we haven't necessarily seen the kind of crypto savvy movements that we expected, even though we were seeing things happen within these ETFs. And I think that is one of the reasons that we're continuing to see a little bit of push down. Concerns over the move comes as whales are still on a massive ETH stash and significant profits, so which could compound the asset's price. Whales still hold about 682,000 ETH, over 1.75 billion. That's crazy. The report of the ICO whales exchange deposits come as crypto assets appear to have shed their weekend optimism. So again, just a little bit more push down on ETH. How are you guys playing ETH? Is this still an asset, or are you looking at diverting some of that capital into other assets that could see a better run? I'm kind of curious how people are playing this. Drop some comments down below. I see a few questions coming in. I want to get into a couple other points right here. This is kind of contradictory to that. And of course, that's ETH ETF flows. This is over the past 3 days. It had shown negative, but this also brings the total net flow since approval around negative 406. Grayscale, of course, has been slowing down in its selling overall. So you can kind of see the positions here with Ethereum in terms of flow. Other points I want to get at right here, ETH burn rate drops to lowest. This, of course, gets into a couple of factors. Many people would look at this, well, maybe this is good, or is it kind of a, silver lining, or is it not? Because if you look at the ultrasound money, you can kind of see the movement back up in here. If we get back into an inflationary position, that's not good for ETH. And that's kind of the scenario that seems to be happening right now as we're starting to see that. And that, of course, is gas fees down. Let's go into one more clip, and then we'll take some questions. This is Vlad. This is back to Vlad Tenev, the CEO of Robinhood. And he's talking about how this shift may occur, especially around custody. And this is a very important point I want to make. Take a look.
In a world where more assets are tokenized, you're going to have a couple of different participants. One is kind of the traditional exchanges and non-traditional. So, Uniswap and other decentralized exchanges. You will also have asset custodians. And I do think Robinhood is well positioned in that space. I would be surprised if centralized staking was a really big thing 10 years from now. But customers also like a clean user experience. And so some of these decentralized products do suffer from usability problems. So I don't think you're going to have too many pure play self-custody only solutions that survive. It'll be componentized and featureized within larger ecosystems. So for example, even via MetaMask, a big sort of development in the past couple of years is them investing a lot in their on and off ramp technologies and connecting with traditional money rail so that you can get your US dollars really easily and buy with one tap and with minimal fees. And actually Robinhood Connect is a big player there. We process a lot a lot of MetaMask's on-ramp volume. And for those that optimize by cost, we typically quickly tend to rise to the top.
All right, so a few points that Vlad is hitting at, and I don't necessarily know if I agree with him 100%. One, I do think that usability, user interface, the touch point of the retail consumer, especially investor, it matters. I mean, it matters so much, it's propelled Robinhood to the front of the line, essentially. If you think about it, they were taking on the biggest in Wall Street, and were able to do it because of, I think, most likely experience, user experience. So if we are going to see a massive run into crypto from mainstream media, or excuse me, mainstream investors, then that's going to matter in a very big way. You will see less people focusing in on decentralized and more people focused in on centralized with the potential to earn some yields. All that could change, but the factor I think that plays into this, and I would agree that I think we will see a lot of consolidation. And what I mean by that is whether it is in Solana, Avalanche, Uniswap, Ethereum, within these ecosystems, yes, there are going to be a handful that are going to win. Those are the ones that I'm really watching. I still think Uniswap is going to be a big one to kind of compete in this space in terms of usability, because it is very easy to use. And as I think consumers and especially investors get a little bit more savvy, because it's like you begin your game at Coinbase. It's like this in every bull run. The new people begin at Coinbase and then they start working their way out into other areas. It's a common thing because you're always chasing better yield, better access, all those kind of things. I just don't see a full centralized going in that direction. All right, so let's go in and take a few questions. I want to get over to the poll real quick. Let's take a look at that. A lot of happening there. Is this the last dip? Yes, sunny skies for Q4, 34% of you. No one more crash yet in August and September. I kind of feel, I'm with you guys on the 38% right now, is I feel like we may see a little bit harder cut down. And it will depend significantly on the political position combined with how the Fed reacts in September. Those are the key things I'm watching really close. All right, a couple of things here I want to get into. Questions. Frankie says, Paul, how do you feel about Ledger? I know you promote Tangent. Listen, we've had, if you guys have not done a lot of research on Ledger, go do it. I'm not saying it's a bad product. I use the product. I like it. Is it the only wallet I use? No, I use all sorts of self-custody wallets because I want to test constantly and see what's best in terms of user experience, security, ease of use, all the factors that play into for things we like. I still think it's a usable wallet. Is it my first pick? I would say no, but But go back and look at just some of the history. I'm still a little bit perturbed that Ledger has not launched the Stacks device. That should have been way out a long time ago. The slowness of going to market with that, I don't like those kind of things. I get it that Saga does that with those, but that it's a long time. Where Ledger, I don't think people were expecting, a couple to 3 years out. What do you think about the gaming coins like Ultra OS? We've had Ultra OS's team on before. Search our channel, see what you guys think about them. We've had both the founders on, and we've got a ton of content from the last. If you really want to get in on understanding gaming, go back in 2021 and look at videos back then, because you're going to find projects that are really making a difference now. You're going to see them in their early state, and then you can make decisions on maybe how to go into some of these projects. What do you think Audius will make a new all-time high? Audius is still a very solid project, writing on Solana, I like, but I still think the situation there is they've got to get critical mass, whether it is with the community in terms of artists, and that's going to take some time and effort. And the thing that I still think is missing right there is podcasting. They have not been able to make that leap. Let's see here. Going to make a big comeback on Gala. I just have no comment on that one. Gala's had so many problems. Dr. J says, can we orange pill Kamala? I don't see how that would be possible in a short period. Maybe over time, with just repetitive education, maybe. But I don't see how that happens. Buy Uniswap, yes. Okay, that's a good move. Sailor okay. Should I sell my XRP? According to many out there talking about XRP right now, XRP could be the next big one. I mean, we've done a lot of XRP videos. I'm still very bullish on it. Is it something that is crazy gains. That's all speculation, guys. Yes, there's a lot happening within XRP. Watch the swell event here in Miami coming up. If they don't announce some major things there, I will be very surprised. So I'm expecting some big news from them. ApeCoin, I've been in and out of that one. I think the better play on the NFT side, if I was going with an NFT versus token, I still think, even though pudgy penguins are kind of overpriced right now and maybe out of reach for a lot of people, but look for some of those gains because there's going to be some NFTs I think that still come out in this market. Sol is where it's at because people need to buy Sol to gamble on Sol meme coins. That's hey, listen, TRD Pro. You drive a TRD Pro? Is that what that is? You're a Sonoma guy? That's the Sonoma, right? That's the Toyota, the TRD Pro. Yeah. FOMO in on XRP. I'm not missing out on this one. Hoyman says, okay, good move there. People are idiots if they think this was the last dip. They be duped. All right, bold statements. Sui. Okay, hey, listen, Sui's been on the move. We actually had that on our buy list. You guys remember we did that video a 10 days ago? It was on the buy list. And look where Sui is today. Go look at the chart. You'll see what I'm talking about. A lot of interesting projects out here. Starting DCA here and slow would be better, having no positions at all. Hey, listen, everybody's got that job, and that is figuring out what it is that didn't work for you, taking your losses if you have to go into dry powder to try to position other things. Not investment advice, but we're nearing toward the end of the year, and most likely we will see some opportunities to do that, which is get rid of the junk, try to find that quality asset at the right time, and then reposition. And those are typical strategies in the market for sure. All right, as I said, if you're not subscribed to the channel, do that right now. It is, hopefully this will get into your algorithm and you'll see more of us. And then of course, if you're not in our private member group, and it's free, it's called the Diamond Circle, and it's very easy to join. We always leave a link down in the description below. But get in that because we have a community over there. We do additional content. I do private podcasts and even audio streams in there sometimes. So check it out. You guys can use the link down below to sign up. And of course, if you're not following me on X, do that. It's @PaulBaron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.